I called the cops on my mom. Story time. When I was younger, about 7 or 8, I had a huge obsession with soda. Do you guys call it soda or pop? I say soda because that's definitely the correct way to say it. So one day in the morning when I woke up for breakfast, there was nothing to drink except for soda. But instead of giving me soda, my mom had poured me a glass of water. Who drinks water? So then I was like, do I have to drink water? Like, can I get some soda, please? And she was like, it's way too early for soda. You can drink some water, boy. So then I was like, I'm not drinking water. I don't want to drink water. And then she was like, if you don't sit your butt down, you're going to be drinking this belt. So then I said, I'm not drinking this water. And I threw the cup of water all over the table and it got in everybody's breakfast. And my mom was like, and I ran. I just ran. I grabbed the phone and I ran into the bathroom and I locked myself in the bathroom. And then I proceeded to call the cops. And when they answered, I told them that my mom was trying to kill me. And then the cops actually came. My mom had to explain the situation. The cop and I had a very long talk. And then when he left, my mom whooped my
This is a story of someone anonymous. Some girls are just really toxic. They'll gang up against you and try to be nice in front of you, but they're just so two-faced. They'll insult you and make you think it's okay, and they'll bring down your self-confidence, but then when you say something, they'll insist that friends joke around all the time. You're not even allowed to be upset at them, because if you get upset at them, they make you feel bad for being upset, but if they get upset at you, you're at fault. They make you feel anxious and guilty for every single move you make. No matter what you do, you're never as good of a friend as someone else. And there's always something they want from you. And that was the type of friend that this person had. So she was just so rude 24/7. But this specific story was when it hit the breaking point. So this girl was one day walking home from school and her friend, let's call her Rachel, came up to her and insisted that she write her 6-month project for her. She was supposed to be working on this for 6 months and it was due the next day. After saying no, Rachel left and never talked to her again. The first time I snuck out involved the police and resulted in me being unconscious. So I had really strict parents and they barely let me go out. I could go out only a few times every week and it was mostly for school. The only other times I could go out was before 8 p.m. and that sucked because all the good parties started after 8 p.m. Most of them started at 9 p.m. and it weren't even like really shady parties with tons of people. It was just my friends literally at her house. One time I decided I was gonna sneak out. I woke up in the middle of the night to go to this really late party. I dressed up really nicely and I decided to go out the window. But I didn't realize that my neighbor's dog was right out the window because sometimes he stays in our backyard. And the reason for that is because our neighbors sometimes need help taking care of him when they're busy. So I jumped out the window and the dog started barking and that meant that there was an intruder. So my parents woke up. I fell unconscious because the height was way more than I thought and my parents dialed 911. So here I am on the ground and I can't even move obviously or tell my parents to stop. Police is on the way. They're talking about the really creepy stalker who refused to leave me alone. So this woman used to sit next to me at work and we never really interacted, but I noticed she was always looking over her shoulder at me. It was really weird because I was like, do I have something on my face? Like, what, like, do I look gross today? But she was just always staring at what I was doing. I thought I was kind of paranoid, but my suspicions were very much confirmed when she followed me home. It was a very pleasant surprise to see this middle-aged woman running just to see what I was doing behind me. I had never met this woman before work, so I did not know what grudge she had against me or why she was so interested in my life. I asked her what she was doing. She was like, oh, I just had to head in that direction. So I was like, maybe I'm just being mean and I just need to like calm down and, you know, put it to the test. And so I went to this really shady neighborhood and lo and behold, she was there. So I needed to hatch a little devious plan to get her to leave me alone because this just could not keep on happening. This happened over so many days before I decided to take action. I contacted a bunch of friends and we came up with this sort of evil plan. Two of the creepy stalker who followed me wherever I went. Like, I'm not even joking. So this girl continued to not speak to me at work, but she was just always kind of lurking in the shadows. Anyway, so I just kind of always saw her wherever I went, and it was scary because my anxiety was soaring, and it had never been there before. But if you've never had a stalker, you don't know the feeling of knowing that someone's always watching you. So in case you watched part 1, you know that me and my friends came up with a plan, and I'm gonna tell you what it is in this part. What the plan was is that I went to this shady neighborhood to see if she would follow me, and she did. So I decided that I would go to this other neighborhood with a nice lake, and she was going to have to go fishing there. You were only allowed to go there if you were fishing, so I went there, made a U-turn. She saw I went back, thought I went back for something. She came out of the car, she went to get a head start on me so she could, I don't know, see what I was doing or something, whatever reason she had for following me. My friend who's a policeman came out and he was like, "Oh, you're fishing without a license? That will get you arrested." Complete lie. I got so scared. Every time of how my whole life was a lie because I found out I had been adopted at a really late age and my parents completely denied it and were furious with me because I had figured it out. By parents, I mean both my adoptive parents and my real parents. So, me and my parents have never looked too much alike. Like, you might think we are kind of, like, distant, like, relatives or something, but you would never guess that we were immediate family. Most people saw my mom and did not even recognize her to look too much like me. However, this kind of just slipped over my head because I was young at the time. I know I said I found out at a late age, but what I meant by that is that I expected to have known something like that when I was young enough to, talk and walk because I felt like I had the right to know this. So we were talking about cultures and heritage and background at school, and my friend got a DNA test and found out these little percentages of different places that she was from, and it was really cool. I decided to get one done, but the results shocked me. Though I was 80% Egyptian, my parents were not Egyptian at all. Though when I told them about the test, they unexpectedly started screaming. I got so mad. Due to how I found out I was adopted, and my parents had been keeping my whole life a lie. After taking the DNA test, the test results came back really unexpectedly. Like I said, I had always known I looked pretty different from my parents, but it was just crazy to see that I had no heritage shared with them, and I knew it had to be a mistake because obviously, they had me. They were only 2% Egyptian, and it said that I was 80% Egyptian, so that doesn't make sense. I confronted them about it, and they started screaming at me. They started crying and said I'd ruined their life and that I should never have taken a DNA test. They grounded me, but I asked them what they wanted to hide from me, and they didn't respond. Later, I contacted my grandma, and she told me the truth. The people I called mom and dad weren't even my real parents. They were my adopted parents, and it shocked me because that meant that my grandma wasn't even my real grandma either. She apologized for not telling me sooner, but she said my parents didn't want me to know. I didn't understand why they wanted to keep it a secret from me, and I asked them again, and they apologized for getting mad, and they said that they were just scared that they were going to lose me. That didn't change anything in our lives. I still love them. Every time I was the girl who was obsessed with me in middle school and copied my every single move until I had to go to the principal because it was completely unacceptable. Before you tell me I'm overreacting, you have to listen to the whole entire story. So there was a new kid at school, and me and my friends invited her to sit with us, and we quickly became very close because she was a really sweet girl and she just seemed like a really genuinely nice person. She was really funny, and I felt like she just kind of brought our friend group together in a way, kind of like the peacemaker in the group. Even though we never got into any arguments around her because we were only friends with her for a couple weeks before we decided that she was crazy. So we added her to like our group chat on Snapchat and hanging out after school, like we were just like besties. I texted her a picture of this new haircut I got onto the group chat, and I'd also dyed my hair. She didn't comment on it, so I thought she wasn't free at the time or that she didn't like it and didn't want to be impolite. Next day, she showed up with the same exact haircut, and when confronted, said she wanted to get it before I even texted it. It went from that haircut to literally my clothes and the way I talked, but it just went downhill from there. I'm sorry it took so long, but this is part 2 of the girl who was obsessed with me. So she started copying everything. Like, she started copying the way I literally wrote. Like, she analyzed the letters that I wrote on my homework, and she tried to write them like I wrote them. She also started straightening her hair because my hair was straight and her hair was naturally curly. One of my favorite places to shop is Paxton, and so I wear clothes from there a lot, and I noticed that all of a sudden she started wearing clothes from there. It was really annoying, but it wasn't at its worst point. The worst part was when I realized she wanted to be me. Not figuratively. She literally wanted to be me. So she called me and told me that school was canceled. And then she went to school dressed up looking like me. The teachers obviously knew it wasn't me, but when the teachers called on my name for attendance, she said here. I was like, what the hell does this girl want? So we kind of just like ditched her like our whole friend group, and then I kind of just confronted her over text and she stopped. Storytime of how my daughter almost died. So my daughter never sneaks out or anything like that. She's a good kid and I trust her. This one day she asked to go out on a group study project at nighttime and I said yes. She left around 7 p.m. and it got kind of late. So naturally I started to worry. At 10 p.m. I was about to text her because I had this gut feeling that something was wrong. But I didn't want to be one of those annoying moms who doesn't let her kids live or even study late. So I was apprehensive, but I forced myself to do something else to pass the time. Time passed really quickly, and it was 11 p.m. Then the clock strikes midnight. I kind of panicked because she's never been out that late without me, and she was with some other kids I didn't even know. I texted her asking her to come home, and she responded 15 minutes later. She was like, I'm fine, I'm coming, but it's with excessive caps and emojis and abbreviations and LOLs, and I know my daughter doesn't text like that. I felt like a crazy paranoid person at that point, so I closed my eyes and fell asleep before I knew it. I woke up, an hour had passed. Now it's 1 a.m. and I don't know where my daughter is. Text her one more time, but it says this caller is not available or something like that. I panic and press the buttons 911 on my phone. Part 2 of how my daughter almost died. So I call 911 trying really hard not to pass out because I'm so worried and I think I'm gonna have a panic attack, and when I have those I usually faint. The police picks up and they go, "What's your emergency? Where are you?" The usual stuff. They say, so I go, "My daughter's been missing for 6 hours and I don't know where she is." And they're like, "Ma'am, it's okay, she's a teenager, let her live." Literally everything I was thinking. She's like, "Calm down, whatever," and I'm begging her, like, I know something's wrong. So she says she's a mother too and she understands, and the police car's on the way. So I was like, "Why didn't you tell me it was on the way when you were talking to me?" Like, I was desperately trying to send you to me to get a search party to search for my daughter, and you had people sent out all along, so I'm pissed, but it's whatever. I just want my daughter home. And the police and the search party go to the school and they find her in a closet, so she's locked up. It's the janitor's closet, and these stupid kids took her phone and locked her up and left her in there. It was hot in there, hard to breathe, and she almost passed out. She had lost her voice from screaming for help, and they just left her like that. Of course I hugged her and cried, but after that we had a long talk about the types of friends she should be making. Like for part 3. This is how I was about to get expelled for doing nothing. You know that one teacher that hates you with no valid reason and makes it very obvious? Yeah, so in middle school, that teacher decided she needed me out of her classroom. To my teachers in middle school, if you're watching this is not my story. So she did everything in her power to make me miserable. She called me over to her desk and yelled at me in front of everyone because I got a good grade and she was convinced I cheated. By the way, I had studied really hard. She just couldn't see me succeed. Class was held because if I did anything or made the slightest move, she would call me out. One day, she called me over and she seemed really serious. So I was like, here we go again. I had already gotten into trouble the day before for yawning one time in her class. "I'm sorry you give us so much homework and then school starts so early." Anyway, so this time I was told that the superintendent was already in the principal's office to discuss what I did. I got scared for a second and tried to recall anything I had done wrong, but nothing came to mind. I took a deep breath and went to the office, and the principal just seemed annoyed that I was there again, and the superintendent wasn't even there, so she had just made that up. Let's call my teacher Miss Karen. So Miss Karen said that I had humiliated her because of her cultural identity or something. I literally told her she had given us the wrong homework, like for part 2, because I can't. Okay, so part 2 of how I almost got expelled for doing nothing. So Mrs. Karen was just really fed up. So she had this whole rant with the principal about how she did not feel comfortable with me in her classroom because I went past her boundaries. And the principal was not having it. The principal was like, "What is going on? Like, you keep on saying these weird general statements that have nothing to do with each other. And I know, like, this is a good kid. Like, I know she didn't really do anything wrong. So can you tell me exactly what she did?" And gave me proof. And Mrs. Karen started screaming. She was like, "You don't believe me? Like, I work here. You should trust me. Blah, blah, blah. You trust this random student. She's such a troublemaker." So the principal explicitly stated, "Tell me exactly what she did wrong." So she had to confess I had done nothing wrong, and she was just making up the weirdest random statements so that I could be expelled. Her justification was that I was a very mean and rude classmate. What? Anyway, she's fired now. This was the worst cuss.